Welcome to Witchpolice Radio. I'm here with a guest who is new to me, and I gather you're fairly relatively new to the music scene as well. I have a lot of questions about your music and specifically around the genre of music you play, and I know everyone hates that question. But before I launch into that, maybe the best way to start this off is if you want to introduce yourself and give a bit of background about what it is you do as an artist.
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Jennifer Machado. I guess I'm considered an indie artist just because I'm not signed to any kind of label.
Sure.
But I'm more like singer-songwriter, kind of pop sounding. And I recently, I guess last year now, released my first EP. So I'm brand new to the industry and I am local in Winnipeg. So yeah.
Cool. Well, I mean, that's obviously got to be exciting to have that EP out and finally people can sort of hear what you're doing. And I guess what I was asking right off the top about the genre thing, I was listening to the EP, and it seemed to me like this is very, very much pop music. I mean, it's
Yeah.
extremely pop, I think, is the sound of that record. But then listening to the songs, they struck me as songs that would probably work in more of a stripped down acoustic singer songwriter kind of vibe as well. And then I went to your Manitoba music page, and you had yourself described as folk pop on there. So that
Yeah.
seems like to me it made a lot of sense. Do you have sort of what do you think of it as? I mean, do you think of it as more of a singer songwriter thing, or straight up pop
Yeah.
music, or something in between?
Well, the way that I think that I wrote the songs were more in like an acoustic kind of sound. So they felt very folk pop, like kind of a mix of the two. Once I actually got into studio to record and I had help with production and stuff, it kind of went
Yeah,
more in a pop direction, which I find that I do appreciate pop music more so than other genres. So naturally I kind of just leaned into that direction. But I don't feel like I would strictly say that I'm pop. You know what I mean? I'm still in a very experimental stage in my music, I would say.
well, how long have you been doing this? I mean, I know that again your EP just came out in the summer, but as far as actually writing your own songs and playing music, how long has that been in the works?
Well, I've been singing my whole life. When I was growing up, I actually didn't think that it would be an option for me just because I assumed that people that were successful in the industry grew up with parents that had experience or family. Lessons, unfortunately, were not an option, but I've always loved singing. I started playing the guitar, I think, when I was about 13 in a school class, actually,
Okay.
middle school. And then I would say I started writing maybe high school. And then during COVID is when I started really, taking that very seriously. I have been doing open mic since I was about 17, I would say. And I actually took part in the Young Performance Program through Folk Fest.
Yeah, I saw that on
Two
your
years
social media. That's
ago.
very cool.
Yeah, so that was really exciting. And then I ended up playing Manifest as well, like the food truck battles and some like night markets and stuff. I performed at Folklorama last summer too, so I've been getting a lot more exposure lately. But in terms of singing, I'd say like since I could talk, um, playing guitar 13, and I've been songwriting since roughly high school, I would say.
Cool,
So
cool. Well, at all those shows you mentioned, I mean, especially the Folk Fest Young Performer thing, and some of those other
yeah.
festivals and big outdoor events and stuff like that, Folklorama. How did you get those shows? Because those are all very high profile. Like, what do you think it is about your music that has enabled you to get shows like that? Because I think a lot of artists starting out, um, they don't necessarily get shows like that. They might be playing small, like you said, open mics and things like that. But
Yeah.
you seem to have managed to jump to sort of, relatively high profile gigs fairly early on in your music career. So, do you think that there's something about your songs that sort of appeals to that kind of? Because I think a lot of those events are sort of aimed at a very wide audience, right? Like a very
Yeah.
broad sort of cross section of people are going to those things. So, what do you think
Right.
it is about your songs that maybe makes you a good fit for that kind of an event?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I'm so thankful for all of the opportunities that I've gotten. I know for sure the Young Performers Program was something that I've been wanting to get into for a long time. I know that there are artists that I've really liked, such as like Taylor Jansen, Olivia Lenny, they've gotten in. And so at the time I was thinking like if I want to pursue music, I need
Yeah.
to do these things. I need to follow in their footsteps. I got rejected, I think twice from the Young Performers Program. And then COVID happened. So that took away another opportunity. The year that I took part in it was the last opportunity I had in the age category because
Okay.
you can only do it until you're 24 or 23. Um,
Right. I guess after
yeah,
that
so
point, you're not considered a young performer anymore, right?
no, I guess not. Now I'm an old performer. So getting into the Young Performance Program, like it was surreal. I had no words to describe the way that I felt getting in. I did send them demos because that was before my EP came out.
Okay.
I guess they accepted my application because of the demos, so it must have been the music. After that, that's kind of when more doors started opening for me. So I did play Manifest based on the Folk Fest program. Once I actually released, I started getting a lot more attention from like local radio. I got CBC to play my songs, which was really cool. I did an interview with the University of Winnipeg station, like the campus radio, which was
CKW,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. And then, I'm Portuguese. So I feel like in the community, a lot of people started hearing my stuff and they invited me to sing for different events, which eventually led to Folklorama, which was cool. So
Yeah.
I did play some of my own songs as well as in Portuguese just to, appeal to the crowd. But yeah, it's been so cool and I'm so thankful.
Is there I mean, over the course of doing the show, I've talked to people from all different backgrounds in Winnipeg. I mean, there's large music scenes. I mean, there's the overall music scene, but then there's sort of little pockets. There's a big Francophone music scene. There's a big Filipino music scene. There's a huge Indigenous scene. Is there a big Portuguese music community in Winnipeg? I mean, that's sort of a community I don't really know much about.
So I think that there are some. I'm not like I appreciate Portuguese music. I don't particularly enjoy it. There's like different genres that are very popular. I'm definitely more in the pop direction. Like I was singing pop covers.
Okay.
But there are a few. I mean, I would say that they're not widely known just because I think that non-Portuguese speaking people wouldn't really listen. But yeah, I think there are some local bands that are just Portuguese music. But I definitely don't think it's like a direction that I'm going to go into as a permanent thing. It was just kind of something I was experimenting with.
Well, I guess you have that in your back pocket, kind of being from
Yeah.
that culture and that community, if something comes up in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
So what
It was
is
a lot of fun.
I bet, yeah, and there's a lot of people there too, right? Just getting to experience your
Yeah,
stuff for the first time.
definitely.
Now that it's been a number of months since the EP came out, what's the response been? I mean, obviously getting these shows, so someone out there is digging your stuff, but like from people people who maybe didn't realize that you were making music or were hearing you for the first time, what's the reaction been to sort of this now being out in the world and people getting a chance to listen to it?
Yeah, it's been really great. I know that when I released my first single, it was called Lorelei. I didn't tell anybody I was going to do it. I mean, other than close family and friends and
Sure.
stuff. But I just released it and then I posted on Instagram, like, surprise, my debut single is out. And a lot of people that I grew up with, friends, they were all like, whoa, like they were so excited. It's not that they didn't know that I was making music, but I guess they didn't ever have a chance to hear what like a fully produced recorded record could sound like. So yeah, like that was really cool. I didn't really have like a fan base, I would say. When you're releasing, there's people waiting for it. So it's just something that I decided to do. Once I released the EP, I feel like a lot more people were expecting it. I didn't actually end up getting any CDs. I'm still planning to, maybe for like the 1 year anniversary, but
Cool.
it's all streaming. So I did end up doing a poster campaign with Adam, who was kind of a co-writer and a producer on the record. He helped me through the whole release. We actually got into it was like a mentorship program through Creative Manitoba.
Oh,
So we
cool.
got into that and he basically acted as like a release manager. So he walked me through the whole process of getting like distribution and the promotion of it, all that stuff. So that was super, super helpful. I don't think I could have done that without his help. And I think that that's a big part of the reason that it's just been so helpful, and like even doing different interviews, like getting ads in newspapers and stuff, like it's just been so helpful to have Adam helping me with this.
And that's Adam from Host of Wonders, right?
Yes, yeah, I'm actually wearing his
Oh, right on, right on.
sweater.
Yeah,
I know that you've interviewed with lots of artists on his label,
yeah,
so
it's a
thank
really
you
good
for the
label.
opportunity.
For sure, for sure. So, I mean, like that's sort of having worked with him. Were you already interested in some of the bands that he's been in, or has produced, or has released on that label, or did you come to this sort of meeting him for the first time and getting introduced to what he does firsthand?
Yeah, well, I'd heard of Yes We Mystic, which he was the singer of, probably when I was early high school.
Okay, okay.
I didn't really know a lot about the local music scene in Winnipeg. I'd known different artists, like I mentioned before, but not to the extent that I do now.
Yeah, sure, of
I
course, yeah.
think that like I've always really wanted to record and release music, but I just didn't really know how to go about it. So during COVID, I feel like because I was home for 6 months and I didn't go anywhere, like all I was doing was writing. And I
Yeah,
got to a point where I was thinking, like, I need to do something with this because I have notebooks and notebooks full of songs. And, so I started researching studios in Winnipeg and House of Wonders came up. And it just seemed like such an amazing opportunity. So I did reach out like on Instagram. I sent some demos. I asked if he'd be willing to work with me, and of course he said yes, which was amazing. And it just working with Adam, it made everything possible, I would say, because up until that point I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that I wanted to make music.
Yeah.
So yeah, once I started working with him, I started to get to know other artists too, and kind of how things are. But up until then, I feel like I went into it blind.
Well, obviously it's
If that,
worked out, and I mean, I guess working with him too probably opened up some doors for you as well in
yeah,
terms of what opportunities come up after the EP was released. Because I mean,
absolutely.
House of Wonders is a known quantity. I mean, a lot of those bands he's worked with have done very well in Winnipeg and beyond, and so like that's got to
Yeah,
be kind of nice to have that have his credit on your release.
for
Just
sure.
because that stood out to me as well when I saw it. I was like, oh, cool. I mean, like I've had him on my show. I know a lot of the
Yeah,
bands that he's produced. So yeah, it's very very neat that you're sort of a part of that overall group of musicians that kind of is based around that label and studio and all the stuff he does.
definitely. So I'm not actually signed to House of Wonders, like the
Yeah,
label, but he also, like, it's kind of like a sister company, I guess. Like there's a label and then there's the studio.
yeah, the
So
recording studio. Yeah,
because we worked together through the Creative Manitoba mentorship program, that's part of the reson that it was so hands-on. I would say that I don't know if it's the same way for people who just go and record with him. So the whole process after releasing, like, that was all because of the program. But having his name on it and having his reference definitely opened a lot of doors. Like he taught me, like who to send emails to and all that stuff. So that for sure helped. But I just wanted to say that it's not label related. I just wanted to be clear.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think there's a lot. There's even more people that have just gone in there to record aside
Yeah.
from the bands he's put on the label for sure. And
Yeah.
I mean, what you just mentioned too is that who to email and all those steps, kind of what to do. I think we're in an era now where that is all part of it. You can't just be a creative person anymore who's writing songs.
Right.
You have to be your own manager and publicist and all these different things.
Yeah.
How is
I
that?
had no idea about any of that until I met Adam. Like, that's what I mean when I say, like, I don't know what I would have done without him, because there's so many things that you just don't realize go into releasing music. Like, I thought, I'd go into a studio, I'd record, I'd release, but like you have to like master the tracks, you have to mix the tracks, you have to find like a distribution company, you have to
Yeah,
release it, you have to have different campaigns for advertising it, and there's so many connections that you just don't have starting out for the first time. So, having him there to help, like it was invaluable, I would say.
do you feel that for whenever you have a follow up come out, you now have kind of the tools to at least start that process on your own
Absolutely.
and knowing just the basics of who to send this to and who
Yeah,
to contact about that?
definitely. Yeah, I feel like a lot of artists that are on his label, like maybe they don't see the stuff that's happening in the background. Like they just kind of, he does it all for them. But I think that doing that with him as like a partnership to the program, like it taught me how to do that again in the future. Like I have all the tools now to be able to do that myself, which I, like, again, appreciate so much. And it's definitely something I'll be using for more releases to come, for sure.
Do you have any releases in the works? Like I imagine, based on what you said about the amount of stuff you were writing during COVID, I mean, obviously you probably have more going on in your life now that the pandemic is hopefully over.
Yeah.
So that you're not just sitting there writing all day, but have you been kind of actively working on new material since the release of
Yeah.
this EP?
So I haven't gotten back into the studio yet. I do have tons of songs that I'd like to eventually record. So I'm getting married this year
Oh
in
wow,
June.
congratulations!
Thank you. So I feel like the process of wedding planning is kind of like making me crazy.
Sure.
But we've kind of been talking about it, and he was saying that maybe like we're gonna be applying for different um what's the word I'm thinking?
Grants?
Funding, yeah, and grants. We're going to be doing that together, and so in probably about January we're going to start getting back into the studio, and hopefully maybe next year I can release something, maybe the following year if not. So it's definitely something I'm planning on doing, but I don't have anything quite yet.
Well, that's a fairly kind of long timeline between releases there. I mean,
Yeah.
you'll have a number of months, even a year, maybe even to kind of work on new material. How do you think your songs will change, or already have changed, sort of from that previous record to what's going to come next?
Yeah. Well, I definitely think that I'm still gonna, kind of jump around in the pop kind of area.
Yeah,
Um, I think that like I really love concept albums. So for me, this last one, the Retrospective Heart, it's, to me, it's a concept record for sure. It's like kind of exploring the history behind other past relationships and where they
okay,
went wrong to the ultimate, conclusion of the last track in retrospect of just like finding yourself and like the person that you're, meant to be with, as cheesy
Yeah,
as that sounds. So I feel like it kind of had like a double entendre a little bit about finding myself in my music, because it came full circle for me. Like if I hadn't been through all of those things that happened that I've been writing about, I wouldn't have songs to sing, right?
right.
And also it was the realization that going through all of what I did brought me to the person that I'm now ultimately going to marry. And, it was really an amazing time for me. So that's kind of where that came from. I think that a lot of stuff that I write has been really just ultimately sad. So I don't know what's going to be for the next one, but I know that it's going to be for sure like a story and like a concept that'll fit together. So it'll be similar in that way. I'm definitely interested in exploring different sounds, but I think it's going to definitely be in the same pop genre for sure.
Cool. Well, I like the idea of the concept albums too. That kind of brings up a question for me though. Is we're in an era now where people mostly listen to music. They have very short attention spans for music, right? I mean, people
Yeah.
are listening to things on shuffle or whatever streaming service they're using, and they
Yeah.
hear maybe a full song before they go on to
Yeah.
something else. If you're trying to put together a record that has that kind of overarching storyline and it is dealing with maybe more deeper and significant emotions than just kind of the typical 2 minute pop song, right? How do
Yeah.
you get people to listen? Like listen well, I guess, to what you're putting out there
Yeah.
when you know that the odds are someone's going to just keep hitting next, 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 and maybe they'll hear one of your songs if you're lucky.
Right. I think that, there's not really anything that an artist can do about that. Even like the big, artists that are like signed to Universal and stuff.
For
Like
sure,
for
yeah.
me, I love just listening to an album from start to finish. I feel like most of the time that's how the artist intended for it to be listened to. But then, you have your singles and like what gets radio play. So people might only know one or two songs, right? I think that I want to write music, I want all my songs to be something that anyone can relate to and find something in. So like maybe they might not like all my songs, but there's one that really stands out that they can connect with. I feel that once you start to have a solid fan base, like if you have the people that really actually love your music and they're not just skipping on a playlist or on the
Yeah,
radio, I want to create something that makes them want to dive deeper into it, to actually listen to all the songs. And if they take the time to really think about it, like from start to finish, like what is the artist trying to say? I think that's just kind of a universal experience with listening to music. Like the artists that you love, if you really pay attention, you can find things that you didn't realize before. And so if they take the time to actually pay attention and listen to the storyline, it'll have kind of a conclusion in the end.
yeah.
But also my goal is that individual songs are also good and something that they want to listen to, because they're all about something else at the end.
Yeah, you want them to stand alone outside of the larger story
Yeah.
and also be a kind of an integral part of the whole. Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear that. I mean, I'm definitely old and set in my ways, and I still
Yeah.
only listen to physical music. Like I don't know how to use Spotify or any of that stuff. So for me, sitting down and listening to a record start to finish is the way you're supposed to listen to music. So I love
Right.
hearing that people are still doing that because it seems so much focus on singles now. I mean, there always has been,
I
I
know.
guess, in certain genres of music and pop being a big one, right? But
Mhm.
yeah, it's nice to hear the idea
Yeah.
of making a concept record is still out there and people are still embracing that.
Yeah, I think it's really important to me just because of the way that I've grown up listening to music, because I also do like to listen to physical.
Yeah.
Like I'll put CDs in my car and like I do use Spotify and stuff, especially because I have my music out now. I had to make an account on Spotify. I've always used Apple Music though. But yeah, like CDs, records, like I like to listen to them. And I feel like, there gets a point where you just like what song's coming next and you'll start singing it before it starts. Like I've always loved that. And especially with certain albums, like I grew up listening to Mariana Trench a lot, and
Okay.
they have some albums where the song will fade into the next song. Like it's seamless. Like you can't tell
Yeah.
where one starts, one ends, and that's always fascinated me so much. So it's definitely something that's important to me. I know that probably not very many young people these days would agree with me there, but like to me, it's very important.
Yeah. So again, it's good to hear. I think the art of sequencing an album and putting the songs in a specific order and intending it to be listened to a certain way
Yeah.
is, I think we're losing it. And it's nice. It's always good to hear that people are still, there are people out there who still want to make music heard that way. Um,
Yeah.
if people are new to you and hearing about you for the first time on the show, or maybe they've, heard one of your songs or seen a poster or whatever, what's the
Mhm.
best way to find out more about what you're doing? This is a podcast. Someone could hear it the day it comes out. or they could hear it like a year and a half from now, at which point
Right.
maybe you have a new record out. Like, what's the best way to kind of keep in touch with you, find out what you're up to, and most importantly, hear your music?
Yeah. So I don't have a website or anything yet. I'm thinking I'm probably going to start working on one eventually. I'm very active on Instagram. I don't use Twitter. I have like a rough Facebook account that I've started, just like a page, but Instagram for sure.
Okay.
My Manitoba Music account from the website would be also very helpful. If I have any shows or anything happening, I probably post on there as well. But for now, yeah, I'd say just Instagram is like the main thing I use.
Cool. And then, is there anything coming up in the relatively near future as far as shows or any other interesting events happening for you?
Nothing I'm planning right now. I'd say in the summer, probably I'll do open mics a lot too. There's always just little things that come up. Like I played Holiday Alley a couple years ago in
Oh, cool.
Selkirk. That was in the winter, but kind of random. But hopefully, like if Manifest comes up again, maybe I might play there. Young performers, unfortunately, I'm not young anymore, so I don't think so. But I mean, the goal would eventually be to play on the main lineup. Like that would be a dream come true, 100%. So yeah,
Yeah, I think that's I think a lot of people in Manitoba who play music of any kind of share that dream, right? I mean, it's
yeah,
always exciting too to see a local artist who has kind of come up through the ranks, and you know, at some point in their careers, they are playing that main stage, or they are getting that kind of
yeah.
exposure, because it's yeah, we have so many good musicians here.
Yeah, for sure. And like again, like not knowing the music scene in Winnipeg up until I started, creating like we have so much talent. I think people don't realize just how much talent comes out of Winnipeg. Like from like a Canada-wide perspective, our music scene is really incredible actually.
Yes, we definitely punch above our weight for music, and I think you're right. People in like Toronto or Vancouver or Montreal, they don't necessarily know just how vibrant the music scene is here until they get here, and then it's just like, what? Where do these bands come from?
Yeah, I know it's crazy, but the word I guess Winnipeg is just it's full of talent. So
Yeah,
it's really inspiring.
I think the usual excuse people make for it is that we're indoors 6 months of the year because of the weather. So, you know, we have nothing else to do but write music.
Yeah, I guess, and that goes true to like what I was saying about COVID too. I was home for 6 months, and I wrote music.
Awesome. Awesome.